The AI space is evolving so rapidly that every couple of months we have a new term. We had prompt engineering at the beginning, then we had RAG, then we had agents, and the new fancy thing, the new fancy term is context engineering. And the thing is, most of them, conceptually, are very easy to understand, but most people try to make them sound more complex than they need to be. I guess partially because some people benefit from making them sound harder, and other people, they simply don't understand them and they're just regurgitating information that they heard somewhere else. So what we're going to do in this video is cover the theory behind context engineering, which is relatively simple and we can cover that in a couple of minutes. And then we're going to jump right into the OpenAI platform to put it in practice by building a practical example. And by the end, I promise you, you'll have a clear idea of what context engineering is than 90% of the people building with AI. And if you don't know who I am, my name is Guillermo, and I am the co-founder and CTO of 7 Sigma. We're a tech studio that builds AI and software applications for clients. And over the past year, we've built more than 20 AI-based products. And trust me, we've learned what works and what doesn't in the real world. So let's start with what's context. The key idea that you need to understand is that LLMs are simply a black box. It's a function that takes an input and spits an output. As simple as that. I've put together an entire video going over all the fundamentals of generative AI. I'll link it down in the description. But the core idea is this. LLMs don't remember anything. You have an input and then you get some output. That's it. They're not connected. Nothing else happens. Now, when you think about the input, an input can be anything that gets fed into the LLM. An input can be a system prompt, can be your normal prompt, the prompt that as a user you sent, can be the rest of the conversation, can be passed as an input. It can be knowledge bases, it can be tools that the LLM has access to, and this is very prevalent in agents. It can be MCP servers, it can be anything that you add. It can be anything that gets fed into the LLM to get the next response. LLMs don't remember anything by themselves. They need to use the input that you pass them to come up with the output. So what's context? The input is the context. They are the same idea. Anything that gets passed into the LLM to generate the next output, that's the input, that's the context. And therefore, managing the context is paramount, is the thing that we need to focus on. Something that I reminded the clients that we work with all the time is LLMs are not mind readers. They need to have access to all your information and everything that you want to come up with a good output. This is all the theory that you need to know to understand context engineering. Everything else comes down to practical applications. Don't get confused. Don't try to think that it's some fancy new thing. This is it. What I'm going to be using is this playground that's going to allow us to play with all the inputs and outputs of an LLM without having to worry about the code. Now, obviously, you can get the output code here. This is what you would ultimately use in your application. But to go over the concepts, this is the only thing we need. So what we're going to be building is a customer support agent that will help us to run our logistics company. So we're going to start very simple by just pasting your helpful support assistant for a delivery company called Transporting. You can think about everything that we have in the screen as in everything on the left was going to be the input and everything on the right is going to be the output. And this transition from input to output is what the LLM is going to do. So ultimately, context engineering is engineering what we put on the left to make sure that the right behaves properly, right? So we're starting very, very simple with this message. This is terrible context engineering. We're not giving any information. All we're saying is like, hey, you're a support assistant for a transport company. This is going to hallucinate. This is going to behave terribly. And so if we try here and say, hey, where's my package? I imagine, sorry to hear that you're having trouble with your package. Could you please provide your tracking number? Well, this is crazy because he doesn't know what to do with the tracking number, right? But let's say we say, all right, my tracking number is this. You can see, terrible, it's hallucinating. This is not what we need. So, well, the first thing that we need to add here is something in the context that tells the AI how to handle tracking numbers. So what we're going to do is we're going to add a tool that's going to be accessible to the LLM to get information for the tracking. So I'm going to go ahead and add a tool that's going to be a function, and I'm going to add something like this. So what have I done here? This is not really how LLMs get the information. By doing this, we're telling the LLM, hey, you can use this tool. This is accessible to you in your context when you need it, right? So we're going to say that the name of the function is going to get tracking status, get status of a delivery, and then it's going to have one property, which is going to be tracking ID. That's going to be a number, and it's going to be the tracking ID. And it's going to be required if the LLM wants to call this tool, right? Now, this is not the implementation. In the real world, this would call a function that the LLM doesn't need to know how it works. It just needs to know that this function is going to have this shape, and if you call it, you get the information about the delivery. So again, the model will intelligently decide to call functions based on the input. So if we add this, and now we go ahead and start a new chat. Where's my package? My tracking ID is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So what I would expect now is that AI will recognize, because in the context it has access to this tool to say, oh, ask about a tracking, I should call this tool. And there we go. Is trying to call this function with this tracking ID. And obviously, this would call an API, but in this case, we're just going to manually pretend that this is the answer, because this is out of the scope of the LLM. This would be implemented somewhere else in your, like if you're a tracking company in your CRM, and this wouldn't be AI necessarily. This is just the interface, right? So on delivery, let's say this is the status, right? So the LLM, the AI, would get this an answer, and the final answer that the user will receive, hey, it's out for delivery, should arrive soon. Cool. So we're making progress by adding to the context this tool. Now the LLM is a little bit better. Now let's take it one step further and say we want our chatbot to know our users. What we would do here is, again, in this context, for example, in the system message, we would tell the AI, let's say we know that the person contacting is one of our customers, right? And let's say we know something about that customer that we want to make it personalized. So we could add something like, you'll be responding to Mrs. Smith. She likes to be called dear often. So you'll be responding to Mrs. Smith. She likes to be called dear very often. So again, this would be information that you collect somewhere else. You could add her preferences, history, etc. And now, by adding this again to the context, and if we run the exact same thing, I would imagine that the AI will say something like, hey, your package is out for delivery, dear. So let's copy this and run it again. On delivery. Hello, dear, your package is out for delivery. So you can see how as we go and improve the context here, the responses change. And again, this is the pattern that we're going to follow. The better the context, the better the answers. In AI, there's this term that's called garbage in, garbage out. All you need to do is give it more stuff to work with, and the behavior is going to improve. So we have this. What else can we do? Let's say that this person has been contacting us every day about his delivery. And if you remember, the first message we sent was, hey, where's my package? But we didn't give it the tracking ID. So what we're going to do is, to the context, we're going to add the conversation history. So we can do that over here and say, so as you can see, I've added the conversation history. And now this is the previous conversation that we've had with this customer. So we can clean this all. And we can also say in the system message, add some more context on how to reply when the user has sent the ID continuously. So we're going to go ahead and say, if you don't know the tracking ID, always assume it's the last one. So this gives it more context on how to operate with this. So this is the previous history. And now let's say the user, in this case, Mrs. Smith, say, hey, any updates on my package? You see? And the AI is already understanding from the previous context that we've built. And again, this is not AI. We've built it as context. Now, this is generated from the previous conversation. It's on us to save it. So I'll say, this tracking is now delayed. Hey dear, your package is currently delayed. So you can see that we've added how to behave, personalization, and then a conversation history. So you can see that the better we get this, the better, the more accurate this is. And this is the key. This is all context engineering is thinking what are all the building blocks, all the pieces that the AI will need to give us a proper answer. And that's it, really. You might think that there needs to be a lot more complications to this context engineering. And in all fairness, when you actually start building real life applications, you'll need to think about all these things in detail. And you need to consider the prompt carefully and what information you add, etc. And you'll eventually be constrained as well by the context size. But the concept that I want you to take away is very simple. You need to figure out what the AI needs to make sure that the output is correct. That's it. And anybody saying use this technique or that technique, maybe they have some validity, but always bring it back to this basic principle. So that's it for this video. Thank you for watching.